Hey there, Dango Stu here. Today's video is about week 1 of working on the steel trawler and is proudly sponsored by marineengine.com. So there's a lot to do, and I will actually publish a plan because I would actually like to get some advice on some of the stages. So I'd rather sort of say what I'm thinking now than sort of view it and people go, hey, you should have done this way. So anyway, but what I'm going to start with is cutting these doublers off the side. Similar process to cutting the old A-frame plates off the deck. So I won't go into a huge detail, but it's going to be a big job, so I'll get cracking with that first. Unlike the smaller plates that were up on the deck here, these run pretty much the length of the boat. They come from up here and they stop just above the chine. Then all this kind of messy steel you see here is the remnants of what was another rubbing strip below that. Because I'm going to grind this off anyway, what I'm thinking I might do is actually, as I grind this, try and grind this bottom weld off. And then if I cut the sides, I should be able to bend this plate up and break this top weld. So, step 1, just heaps of grinding along this chine. Definitely going to be a long process, but you know, is what it is. What I'll show you though is what's actually happening here. So from right up in the bow, there's a bit of a rubbing strip that's welded on, and you can see here it gets to the point where the strips here, the bottom welds here and the top welds here, it starts to separate. So here you can see it quite cleanly, the 3 parts, the weld, the strip and the weld. Then when you get to the back of the boat, in places it's completely gone. So what I'm doing is I'm grinding away, and then eventually bits of this strip are coming off, breaking off like that, and then you just got the hull plate below it. So I'm just getting back to a clean hull plate on this strip, then we'll start attacking the bottom weld of this doubler. So been experimenting a bit, and it looks like cutting up through it with a cutting disc is much quicker. The cutting discs are definitely the way to go. As you get the blade in between the two, you just see a whole lot of black dust come out instead of metal filings. So you know you're not cutting metal, you know you're between them. And then once you've done that, I do a bit of a cut along here, and then I can just pry it off in big sections, and we're down to the hull here. So I've been going for a few days on this now. I'm definitely getting quicker at it, so the other side will go much faster, but I'll show you what I found and what's happened. So I took that layer off here, and it was all going kind of well. The angle of the hull starts to change back in, and I was pretty tired. I've actually cut into the hull here, so I'm going to weld that up, which is no biggie. But what I discovered when I came further along is that this strip is actually 2 layers, one here, one here. So I've now come back here and started taking the bottom layer off, so I've got to do a second layer all the way to the stern as well. So turned out to be a slightly bigger job than I planned, not rocket science. Made a mistake here, but it's all fixable. Now this week's video wouldn't be particularly interesting if it was 7 days of cutting and grinding. So what I'm going to do now is have a go at getting that rudder post out. I showed getting the rudder itself off in a previous video, so I won't go through it in detail, but a few points is, got a lot of mud here just from coming in through the shallow water, so I'll quickly gurney that to clean it up. And last time I didn't have a 24mm spanner, but I didn't think to check my imperial, and 15/16 seems to fit well enough. So at least I can put a spanner on now instead of that pipe wrench. I'll replace the bushing in here, but I'll pull it out, and we may as well put this in the electrolysis bath as well, given it's a small part. Because the rudder is also small enough to move around, I'm going to throw it in the truck, get it sandblasted, and then straight away epoxy prime it and anti-foul it. So that was pretty quick. We're now back to where we were at the marina, which is up to getting this rudder post out. Somebody suggested using a ball joint or a tie rod separator to try and bring this apart. I think it's a good idea. I like hearing kind of interesting uses of tools, but this is really stuck. I can't turn the rudder post at all. If I put a bar in the flange, I can barely turn it, only when I hit it with the big hammer. So it goes to show how strong the hydraulic steering really is. The steering was feeling a bit notchy, and that's because this is so stiff. I think the fluid was actually skipping past the vanes on the pump. Anyway, I'll take you up top and I'll show you my plan. This here is the cap for the emergency tiller. It's a bit rusted, it's definitely all painted over, so I need to get this undone. That'll allow me to put a drift down and hammer down on the top of the rudder post here, at least to get it open enough that I can put some sort of hydraulic ram in. So what I'm going to do first is rig up the needle gun and see if I can just chip paint away from this cap. Still looks pretty corroded. Anyway, we'll give it a shot. Worst comes to worst, we'll have to cut it off and install a new thread or something. I'm going to put a little bit of heat on it now, and then I'll just have a go at undoing it. It's worth a shot. I'm not hopeful, but we'll give it a go. I've got some oxyacetylene bottles, but unfortunately the torch kit I ordered hasn't arrived yet. I'm actually waiting for a lot of tools that I ordered that I need, which is really affecting the order I'm doing things in. Anyway, I did get just a little, butane torch. At least it'll get some heat into it. We'll give it a crack. Not going to let paint chips go in the river. Biggest impact socket I've got is 54mm, and it's not quite big enough. I'd say it's about the size of the bolt, so it's only a couple of mil out. So I think we're going to have to put the Stilsons on it, put a bar on it, see what happens. Could also try an air chisel to drift it round, but I'll try the Stilsons first. The extension tube I put on these sockets is actually just a fork from a motorcycle. They're pretty strong and they're about the right diameter. So I was originally thinking that this was a cap, a female cap onto a male thread here, but it turns out the whole thing just threads out of the hull, so no drama. Probably needed to heat the hull, not the cap then, but it came out anyway. At least I know now. People always say it takes you ages to learn your boat, and now I know. Obviously, it was never intended to be used as an emergency tiller. I'd hate to do that in an emergency, but I'm definitely going to fix it up so it is an emergency tiller again. That'll involve adding a bypass to the hydraulics and keying the top of the rudder post, which it currently isn't. I would say that whole emergency tiller system got decommissioned when they swapped to hydraulic steering. So you can see down there, just below, is the rudder post. I'm going to go down below now and heat the rudder tube, then we'll come back up and start hitting the rudder post. See if we can drive it down a bit. I've put the little wedge in to help pull it down, but these don't have a lot of strength. Can't hurt though. If I have this with constant pressure while I'm hammering from above, maybe. So you can see here at the top of the post, hasn't moved at all, but if I cut a small amount off, I can get this little 10-ton ram in here. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Get the big grinder, cut the top 15mm off, and then see if we can push it down. Alright, got the big grinder. Not a lot of room to hold cameras and stuff, so I'll give it a go and we'll see what we end up with.
Well, wasn't that an absolute pleasure to lie under here and cut that? I better get the vacuum in here and get all those iron filings up before they start rusting. But before we do that though, I've swapped over to this low profile ram and we'll see whether we push the post down or whether we push our deck up. Okay, ram's up against the deck head here now. Give it a few more pumps to put some pressure on it, and then while the pressure is on it, I'll just keep putting heat onto the tube. Even if only for morale reasons, I've decided to take the steering attachment, the arm, off the rudder post. A, it has to come off for the post to go down, and the post isn't moving at the moment, so I figure, you know, just do something that perhaps is achievable. Then we'll think more about the post. Got the little hydraulic wedge in here, so I'm using this to spread the post a little bit, and then I'm just hammering it upwards. And you can see the key here. Alright, it's all the way up now, but I just don't quite have the clearance to get it off the post yet. Get some pliers or a chisel, see if we can get this key out. But at least that's something done. So if we can get the rudder post to drop a bit, we'll get that sort of tiller attachment for the hydraulic steering off, no dramas. I had another go this morning with Bill, a guy who's close to here, who gave me a bit of a hand. He used to own trawlers, so he's pretty familiar with these sorts of problems. I'll show you what we were doing so you know what we tried, and then we'll have a chat about what I'm thinking I'm going to try in the future. So the next thing I did was move a couple of these props from the middle of the boat to either side of the rudder post so that there's no flex. So as I'm hammering it, the shock load gets transferred a bit more to where I want, rather than the hull perhaps flexing and absorbing it. We also then put the little hydraulic jack in this space. It's not great because you're definitely pushing it at a bit of an angle, but we thought put some force here while I hit it from above with a longer handled sort of sledgehammer. And you know, it just doesn't feel like it's budging at all. So I need more heat. I think that's a given. I've got a oxy torch on order. I've also got the LPG torch I used to use in the workshop, which I like in the sense that it has a large flame. I'm trying to heat a large area. Like, I'm not looking to cut something, I'm just looking to really get it hot. So I might grab that LPG torch from the workshop, try that. If not, the oxy torch is arriving soon. I've actually been waiting for a lot of tools. I said in last week's video I was going to weld the legs for these props in situ, and I'm still waiting for an adapter to allow me to plug the 15 amp welder in, and that hasn't come yet either. I'm finding in this first week I'm either spending a lot of time on the road going to shops to buy stuff I need, or I'm ordering it online and then finding that I'm waiting the week or so delivery time. So it's been a slightly unproductive week, I think, because of that, just sort of getting tooled up and ready. I'm going to get on now and just keep grinding the rubbing strip off. You know, it's tedious, but at least it's something I can do while I'm waiting for other tools. I'm glad the steering arm came off the rudder post because, you know, felt like I achieved something. I was starting to realise why Australia rhymes with failure, but, you know, we'll get there in the end. As well as using stronger heat on the rudder tube, I'm thinking it'd be good to find some way of cooling the rudder post. The gas supplier I use also supplies dry ice or some sort of spray. There's cooling sprays you can get. I just don't know how good they are for an area that large. Maybe some dry ice in a, like, tape the top of it up and then fill it with the top, let the cool sort of travel down, let it sit there for a few hours before trying. Or maybe some sort of spray liquid nitrogen, I don't know. But I definitely think both heat on the tube and cold on the post is going to help a lot. The other thing I was thinking, maybe a bit crazy, but is actually drilling a depression in the top of the post and then getting a fine point tip on an electric jackhammer and seeing if I can use it as like a giant air chisel and just see if I can knock it down that way. Particularly now with the posts under the boat either side of the rudder post, I feel those shocks from the jackhammer would actually go straight into the post. Maybe it'll come out, you know, I don't know. It's a little bit out there, but maybe it'll do the job. Obviously in combination with heat and cold as well. One other thing I was thinking I could try would be to get a large diameter tube, wrap it around the rudder tube, put a hose clamp on it, then I could fill that with oil and then maybe even block the top and put the compressed air like we've done with the outboard steering cables as a way of forcing some lubricant down between the post and the tube. I think that's worth trying to rig up as well. There's obviously a lot of old grease in there. The heat will melt the old grease because I think it's gone hard. Maybe even actually, rather than having an oil and a degreaser, like the acetone and ATF combination, that kind of thing, and just see if we can push that through till it starts dripping out the bottom of the rudder post or the rudder tube. So I'll have a look at that. Once again, it means, you know, driving around, trying to find the exact right diameter, hose clamps. You can really easily burn half a day just trying to find this stuff, and that's really what happened mostly during the week of this video, week 1. So I've really got to somehow manage that time that I'm on the road and not actually working on the boat. But anyway, that's my problem, not yours.
As I was kind of saying in the earlier videos, I'd like to give you as much information about how it goes, because I think if you try and do this job for yourself, and I get the impression a lot of people sort of have a dream of doing a boat like this up, then these are the kinds of things you're probably going to strike as well. So I think it's kind of worth knowing about. People do complain in the comments saying, oh, you talk too much, but I think it's much quicker than trying to mime it all. All right, well, take care. I'll push on and I'll catch you next week. See ya.